It is said that this is a truly terrifying movie, and also Japan's most intense horror tale. The film consists of 9 independent and chilling short stories. Each one makes your hair stand on end and chills your spine. The promise of the witch in Japanese horror films has come today. The first story, The Monster with the Oiled Paper Umbrella. On a rainy night, Xiao Shuai was speeding down the road. At that moment, he was calling to collect a debt. Facing the debtor's desperate pleas, Xiao Shuai remained indifferent. The debtor was pushed to the brink. He cursed that Xiao Shuai would go to hell. In response, Xiao Shuai cruelly laughed at him. "Remember to pay me back tomorrow, you poor wretch." Unexpectedly, just as he was distracted, a figure holding a red umbrella appeared in the middle of the road. Xiao Shuai couldn't dodge in time and crashed right into it. He hurriedly got out of the car to check. However, the strange thing was that there wasn't even a shadow in front of the car. Xiao Shuai thought he was seeing things. He wanted to wash his face to wake up a bit, but when he took out his lighter for light, he was shocked to see, "Go to hell," written on the wall. Just as he was puzzled, a shadow with an umbrella suddenly appeared on the wall. He quickly turned his head, but the shadow bizarrely disappeared again. At this point, he was finally frightened. He hurriedly ran back to the side of his car. He wanted to leave this ghostly place quickly. However, at that moment, on his car window, his name suddenly appeared. He didn't dare to think about it deeply, but at the moment he opened the door, a large amount of water came pouring out of the car. Immediately after, the street light flickered twice and went out completely. He stiffly turned around. He saw a woman with a red umbrella standing behind him. At this time, he was unaware that danger was approaching. He foolishly challenged the woman with the red umbrella. "What are you?" I said. Oh. Xiao Shuai walked around the car and suddenly went silent, because he was stunned by the scene in front of him. The woman with the red umbrella only had one leg. She leapt 5 meters high with each jump. Xiao Shuai frantically took out a folding knife. He threatened the woman with a fierce expression, but the next second, the knife broke. Xiao Shuai screamed in fear and turned to run. As a result, the woman sprang toward him like she was on a spring. She hopped closer to him with each jump. With a piercing scream, Xiao Shuai and the woman with the red umbrella became inseparable. Next, we will tell the second story. The Wall Painter Monster. B. Office worker Lee Mochu was working overtime alone at the company. B. Exhausted, she prepared to relax a bit, but she unexpectedly saw in the building across. A woman was undressing. "Your window is wide open." Was it intentional? It's an art performance, right? Lee Mochu watched with great interest. She unexpectedly hoped the woman would turn her head to get a good look at the woman's twisted beauty. But when the woman turned around, Lee Mochu was instantly shocked, because that woman had a face identical to her own. She thought she was hallucinating. She hurriedly made a cup of coffee to perk herself up. However, the woman across from her was still staring intently at her. She even reached out and pointed behind her. Just as Lee Mochu fearfully turned to look behind her, the corridor lights suddenly went out. A mass of darkness surged toward her in an instant. Immediately after, a gigantic face appeared. It was bizarrely staring at her, accompanied by a scream. She was directly swallowed by the wall monster. Next, we will tell the third story. The Sea Boss. A man and 2 children were fishing by the sea. As a result, they only caught a strange piece of wood. Little Fatty mocked him for his poor skills. But at that moment, Big Yellow saw something through a hole in the board. What was it? Little Fatty curiously followed his gaze. But there was nothing. And as Big Yellow put down the board, what he had seen moments ago disappeared. This left him looking panicked. You can see it through this hole. Take a look. Little Fatty took the board and looked at the sea again. Oh my, it's actually real. What on earth is happening? It seems this thing can only be seen through the board. The 2 kids were scared and chattering nervously. This made the man beside them a bit impatient. What's wrong with the kids? However, the kids ignored him. They just kept screaming and hurriedly fled the seaside. The man looked confused. He curiously picked up the board. Sure enough, a completely black monster appeared on the surface of the sea. After removing the board, the monster disappeared again. When he looked through the board again, the monster had already reached the shore. At that moment, the man finally saw its terrifying appearance. Countless pale arms were stretching out from its mouth, and its eyes were actually 2 horrifying female faces. An eerie and terrifying aura. Even the seagulls flying here inexplicably fell, and as luck would have it, it surprisingly seemed that a fish had taken the bait. But this fish, the man dared not take it at all. Next, we will tell the fourth story. The Woman in the Box. Xiaoming and Dado are photography enthusiasts. They love to take pictures of strange and unique things. That day, they came to an abandoned factory in search of inspiration. The dilapidated factory building, the ground overgrown with weeds, made the 2 particularly excited. But just as they were frantically taking photos, they suddenly discovered a pair of large white legs wearing red high heels, stretched out from the stairs. This scene was truly spectacular. I really want to drive to the scene and see it. Speaking of cars, I recently bought a car from Guazi Used Cars. I bought a 2021 Tesla Model 3. I didn't expect it to cost only $99,000. That's over $130,000 cheaper than a new car. But it drives just like new. New cars are depreciating quickly now. Guazi is a great deal. Every car from Guazi has undergone official professional inspection. You can also test drive it for 3 days first, so you can buy with confidence. Guazi cars are economical. 9,759. Don't miss out. Zhao Ming rushed forward and started taking numerous photos. He couldn't help but exclaim how wide her legs were. Dadu, seeing that something was off, was scared and wanted to call the police. But Zhao Ming stopped him. Pull her out. Wait, I'll call an ambulance first. Stop rambling and hurry up. Although Dadu was very scared, he still mustered up the courage to walk over. However, the woman's body was as heavy as a block of iron. Dado exerted all his strength to pull her out. But in the next moment, both of them were stunned by the scene before them. The woman's head was actually stuffed inside an iron box. Only her body was left outside. Xiao Ming curiously wanted to open the box. However, he was knocked down by a jet of water that sprayed out of the box. Immediately after, from the water, a woman's face slowly emerged. Suddenly, he saw a strange woman with no eyeballs and a mouth full of black teeth. Xiao Ming, terrified, swung the iron rod and struck her. This hit directly knocked off the woman's head. Faced with this horrifying scene, Xiao Ming was so scared that he turned and ran. But Dado's legs went weak. He collapsed on the ground and couldn't get up. He watched in horror as the woman's body staggered towards her head. Then it directly reattached itself. However, she seemed not to align it properly. The head wobbled back and forth in the iron box, accompanied by a sinister laugh. The woman manually repositioned her head. Meanwhile, the big head took a bow amid a tragic wail. Next, we will tell the fifth story, the wheelhead. This is a monster with a retractable neck, yet it has the face of a woman. It stays youthful by consuming men's essence. It can be called a boy killer. Akong is an art student. One day, he checked into a hotel. Look at this auspicious room number. That's right. He is the chosen lucky one. Akong was preparing to paint by the window, but he was deeply attracted by the beautiful scene from the neighboring balcony. He saw a woman in a red dress with long hair standing there. Akong was entranced by the sight. He couldn't help but pick up his brush to capture the scene. His girlfriend saw that the painting wasn't of herself. She couldn't help but get angry and jealous. But Akong was as if enchanted, completely ignoring his girlfriend's feelings, even prioritizing the painting of a woman with long hair, not only skipping classes for several days, but also not answering his girlfriend's calls. His girlfriend is worried about Akong, so she runs to his house to find him. But at this moment, the house is in complete disarray. A pile of discarded sketches is scattered on the floor. Akong in front of her looks as if he is possessed. He has been furiously drawing. I went to check the hotel where you saw the woman. It doesn't exist. Faced with his girlfriend's questioning, the pale-faced Akong remains indifferent. His gaze is vacant. He starts to ramble incoherently. I'm almost done. She watches me every day. Looking at the bizarre paintings and the strange Akong, in a fit of anger, his girlfriend tears all of Akong's paintings to shreds, and throws them off the balcony. Unexpectedly, this action not only did not wake Akong up, but also directly stimulated his nerves. Akong mechanically walks towards the balcony. Then he jumped down. His girlfriend hurried downstairs in fear to check. But at that moment, Akong lay in a pool of blood, no longer breathing. This caused his girlfriend immense pain. She felt that it was her fault that he died. In the next second, his girlfriend felt a chill run through her body. She instinctively looked up. To her surprise, she saw the woman in red from Akong's painting. The woman was peering out, staring intently at her. At the same time, Akong's paintings began to float down one by one. Together, they formed a horrifying scene. Just as his girlfriend was terrified, the woman's head suddenly appeared beside her ear. Next, I'll tell the sixth story, the cat's eye monster. In the evening, Ah Shang was chatting with someone, but her daughter pushed over a baby stroller. Ah Shang was quite puzzled. She asked her where the stroller came from. Her daughter said it was given to her by a strange aunt. She promised the aunt that she would take good care of the cat child. However, the stroller was in a state of disrepair. It also emitted a foul odor. There was no sign of any cats at all. Ah Shang thought someone was playing a prank, so she took the stroller back to the park. But there was no aunt, as her daughter had mentioned. Only many stray cats were gathered there. This made Ah Shang feel very uncomfortable. She saw that no one was around, so she hurriedly left the stroller there and quickly left. After getting off the elevator, she disdainfully sniffed her hands. But the next second, the stroller strangely appeared at her doorstep. Ah Shang was somewhat angry, so she directly threw the broken stroller into the trash pile. But when she returned home again, the stroller was still at her doorstep. Ah Shang wondered who was so bored. She angrily approached the trash pile and gave it a strong push. Something wrapped in rags fell out. Suddenly, a piercing cat scream rang out. A wave of fear washed over Ah Shang. She hurried towards her home. Fortunately, the baby stroller did not appear this time. She couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. But then, the creaking sound of wheels rubbing reached her ears. In the next second, a disheveled woman was pushing that strange baby stroller towards Ashong. Ashong was so scared that she stumbled back and desperately banged on the door. But it was of no use at all. As the woman drew closer, Ashong finally saw what the other person looked like. Accompanied by a cat's meow, Ashong was so frightened that she fled. Before she knew it, she had run into the basement. As a result, what hung on the walls were things wrapped in rags. Before she could collect her thoughts, the baby stroller suddenly appeared behind her again, with a cat's cry in the darkness. A kitchen knife fell from the sky. The camera panned. The door of Ah Zhang's house opened. Her daughter walked out from inside, but the kitten in the baby carriage was gone. Instead, there was a round object wrapped in newspaper. Inside, there were also some long hairs mixed in. Next, we'll tell a different story. The one-eyed monster. In a hospital that couldn't pay its electricity bill. A Tokyo hospital that couldn't afford to turn on the lights. Nurse Shin Zi went to room 406 to check on patients. But when she walked into the ward, a figure was wandering around the room, looking like someone who was drunk. Shin Zi thought it was the patient, Miss Nanmu, so she called out a few times. However, the other person ignored her. Just as Shin Zi was about to approach, the next second, the lens shattered without warning. Shin Zi hurriedly reached out to support, but ended up dropping the glasses on the floor. Then, clumsily stepped on the lenses. At that moment, the woman on the hospital bed slowly turned her head. That blood-red eye stared wider than a ball. Immediately, the lights around kept flickering. In the dim and bright light, the atmosphere was very eerie. But without her glasses, Shin Zi was effectively blind. She couldn't see the appearance of the Cyclops at all. Just as she nonchalantly knelt on the ground looking for her glasses, the Cyclops was slowly approaching. It was evident that it was also severely nearsighted. It couldn't locate Shin Zi's exact position at all. After a series of mysterious maneuvers, the two didn't even touch each other. In the end, Shin Zi gave up searching for her glasses. She took out her phone and called her colleague. Hello. Miss Nanmu in room 406 is in bad condition. Wait, where did you say? Miss Nanmu in room 406. What the hell? There shouldn't be anyone there. What? Nanmu left the hospital this evening. Nu's spine tingled at her colleague's words. Who was that figure just now? He nervously turned around, only to find that the figure had disappeared. Just when Nu was puzzled, suddenly a pair of hands grabbed her shoulders from behind. In the next second, the Cyclops slowly peeped out. Its blood-red eyes kept darting around. It reached out and gently touched Nu's eyes. Accompanied by a painful wail, a story about the wheel glaze followed right after. Two workers were resting at the construction site. The old man took out a photo. He looked at his granddaughter in the photo with tender eyes. Suddenly, a cold wind swept through. A large chunk of the photo was sliced off. Startled, the two of them jumped. What is happening? Such eeriness is clearly not a good omen. The young man got up to retrieve the photo, but the next second, the old man's cigarette was also cut in half by something. The two were still confused when the steel pipe on the young man's head was also cut. The shelf in the middle suddenly collapsed. The old man hurried forward to assist, but just then, an eerie laughter echoed. The old man went over to investigate the sound. He saw a monster holding two sides. In the old man's terrified gaze, a flash cut him in half. Then it approached the young man with a strange laugh. The young man was scared and broke out in a cold sweat. He panicked and tried to dodge backward, but the monster flashed again, appearing right in front of the young man. At that moment, the young man accidentally touched a screw nearby. The sound of the screw clashing instantly changed the cute expression of the monster. The young man immediately realized that this screw had great power, so he started shaking those screws. As expected, the little cutie was very afraid of this sound. Her expression became increasingly fierce. Her body began to twist in pain as she retreated. Seeing this, the young man grew more courageous in battle. He held a bucket of screws in his hands. His feet were on the yellow earth. Just when he thought he would bring glory to his family, he accidentally fell to the ground. The screws scattered all over the ground. Just when he thought he was done for, he looked up and found the little cutie was gone. Only a single sentence was left behind. I will come back. The young man who survived the disaster. He made a charm out of the screws. Time passed quickly. The young man became an old man, frail and aged, and the little cutie really came back as promised. Her iconic laughter, a red butterfly hairpin, and a black short dress. I knew it wasn't a dream. The old man shook the screws again, but this time, the little cutie remained calm and composed. She grinned widely, revealing her big, black teeth. Next, we will tell the next story. The giant sorcerer. Late at night, the girl goes to the rooftop of the building to commemorate her deceased classmate. She brings her favorite food from her life, hoping she won't be lonely over there. Just then, the girl's phone rings. It's a few classmates who haven't arrived yet. The girl urges them to come up quickly on the phone. One of the sickly girls complains. She asks why they have to come to such a high place. The girl feels a bit melancholic. She says it's closer to heaven here. As she speaks, she can't help but look up at the sky. But suddenly, the girl seems to see something terrifying. She is so scared that she dares not make a sound. The next second, a gust of wind strikes, instantly blowing her hundreds of meters away. A few girls in the stairwell hear the noise. They hurry up to the rooftop to check. However, they do not see the girl. They think she went to the bathroom and don't pay it any mind. After they finished their tribute, the sickly girl finally approached. But when she looked up, a huge humanoid monster was crouching next to the girls. Apparently, they were unaware of the monster's presence. In that moment, an overwhelming fear rendered the sickly girl speechless. She trembled as she raised her finger. Meanwhile, Koizumi and Mika in the hotel also noticed something seemed to fall from the rooftop. They approached to take a closer look. It was the girl who had just been blown down. At this point, she had turned into a puddle of flesh. Koizumi and Mika screamed in fright. As a result, the next second, there was no one here. The sudden situation caused them to completely break down. However, the hotel room door was locked tight. In utter helplessness, the two could only look for another exit. As a result, they not only saw the mark Mika had left, but also found room 666. At this moment, Mika suddenly remembered. They had been here before as children, because they had no way to leave. She had made a promise with a woman. If you become pregnant, you promise to give the child to her. Just as Xiao Quan's voice trailed off, the surroundings of the corridor began to change incessantly. Soon after, the door of room 666 opened. Mika uncontrollably walked inside. Then a woman in red appeared before her. But suddenly, her neck moved. Her head started to float slowly. There was a sinister glow in her eyes. Keeping the promise. Mika instantly broke down and turned to run. The woman in red turned her gaze towards Xiao Quan upon seeing this. At that moment, the screw amulet her grandfather had given her fell out. Upon seeing this item, the expression of the woman in red changed instantly. Her head also shrank back. Seeing this, Xiao Quan took the opportunity to pull Mika and quickly escape. But in the blink of an eye, they found themselves by the sea. The sea boss was gnashing its blood-filled jaws at them. The two were so scared that they hurriedly covered their eyes. But by the time they reacted, the scene changed again. The wall-painting monster was shaking its large head. It appeared behind them. The two of them fled in panic. They quickly ran into a room. But in the next moment, they suddenly found themselves in the suburbs again. In the pouring rain, the one-legged oil paper umbrella monster was staring intently at them. Then they mistakenly stumbled into a hospital. The Cyclops monster's eye was still red and round. The two screamed and ran wildly again. This time, they encountered three monsters at once. The boxwoman who liked to cackle strangely, the catwoman who excelled at strange screams, and the weasel who loved to wield scissors. In a state of utter terror, the two of them screamed all the way to the rooftop. At this moment, Mika had lost her sanity from fear. Only Koizumi recalled that they had been here when they were children. It was after they jumped down from here that they successfully escaped. So, she took Mika's hand, intending to jump again. But just then, the giant mage suddenly appeared behind them. However, they were not killed by the fall, but rather arrived in a self-colored space. Inside, they were entangled by countless red strings. A large number of white spherical balls hung in the air. The sound of helpless crying from babies filled the surroundings. These were the children collected by the witch. At that moment, the wheel-headed creature appeared. She crawled towards them like a giant spider. She climbed along the red strings towards the two. Koizumi wanted to reach for the talisman, but accidentally dropped it on the ground. And this scene was also noticed by the wheel-headed creature. Thus, a battle for the talisman began between one person and one monster. In the end, Koizumi picked up the talisman, suddenly threw it towards the wheelhead. Unfortunately, the wheelhead was only injured in one eye, but this space was also smashed open with a crack. At this moment, the wheelhead was extremely furious. It vowed to tear Xiao Quan into pieces. In the critical moment, Mika decided to step forward, to hold back the wheelhead herself, allowing Xiao Quan to escape. But just as Xiao Quan was nearing the exit, the wheelhead suddenly looked at her. Keeping the promise. In an instant, Xiao Quan's memories surged back. It turned out that when she was young, Xiao Quan had also made a promise to entrust her child to her. But because she was not pregnant, she forgot about it. But once a promise is made and not fulfilled, there is a price to pay. Just as Xiao Quan grabbed Mika's hand, and they ran towards the crack together, the wheelhead chased after them as well. As a result, at the last moment, Mika was caught by the witch by her arms. Only Xiaochen escaped from this strange space. When she woke up again, a strange building appeared in front of her, the 666 Hotel. Before she could collect her thoughts, countless hands suddenly reached out from beneath the building, starting to wander through the city, searching for those who did not keep their promises. Alright, that's the story for today. See you in the next episode.